Brett Siegel, who is from Clutch Points, NBA insider, he was on Afternoon Drive on Friday, says he doesn't see big changes for your Cavaliers.
Why would you screw things up right now? You were the 1 seed. You had a historic season. And now with the path being wide open, with some of those teams taking a step back, you're probably going to be the 1 seed in the East again. You still have things to work on, but you have a full offseason to work on that with Kenny Atkinson, with this group, and correct the mistakes that you made. You have a full offseason to get healthy because a lot of those guys were banged up in the playoffs. I think that it makes the most sense just to stand pat and fill the gaps around this team, fill out your bench, essentially bring back a guy like Ty Jerome, and obviously get a little bit more depth in that front court. See if you can sign a guy to a minimum contract just in case Allen or Mobley get hurt, and you can have some depth there. But I really don't believe that we're going to see any major changes from this roster.
I mean, he's willing to go as far to say you're the number 1 seed in the East again, coming up at the end of next regular season for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Well, you bring it up because the Memphis Grizzlies have traded Desmond Bane for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, and 4 unprotected picks. They traded him to the Magic. 4 unprotected first-round picks, 1 first-round pick swap. I mean, that is a huge haul for Desmond Bane, who I'm going to let you take it away. You say he's better than a certain somebody out there.
Well, I would say I'm the wrong guy to ask, but I guess because I'm on the radio here in Cleveland, I have to be the right guy to ask. I really like Desmond Bane. I've really liked him for a long time. He is an awesome, awesome shooter. He's been really, really consistent. He's like every year, 40% from 3. And he is, like, you look at him, he looks like an NFL player. Like, he is one of the most ripped guys in the league. And he makes up for his small wingspan, doesn't have the longest arms, but he makes up for it by, being one of the more physical wing defenders in the league, sets these huge screens. He's just a guy, like, in the playoffs, come playoff time, he hasn't shot it well the last few years in the playoffs. He's like a physical, try-hard defender. I've always been in love with Desmond Bane, and I know a lot of people have been talking about, like, does this set the market for a potential Darius Garland deal? And, most lists have Darius ahead of Desmond Bane. Like, if you look at top 100 ringer, most lists have him. He's never been an all-star. He's never made, like, an all-defensive team. But Desmond Bane is, like, the perfect blueprint for a guy you'd love to have come postseason because he can play both ways. He can do a bunch of things. So I really like Desmond Bane. And if there was any kind of a deal that, if you could get anything like this for Darius, I know the Cavs aren't really looking for draft picks, but just in terms of where he's rated, like, you have to wonder what Darius could get you in a trade.
Well, the way I see it here, when we're talking about draft picks, when you look at Memphis, I don't know what Memphis is trying to actually do. I don't know if they're trying to reset their entire organization or if they're just trying to reset around Ja Morant. I don't know if Ja Morant's a guy that anybody trusts to reset a franchise around, because I think he just gets in his own way and does dumb things. But I think that they're in a different spot than we are. They look like they are on the precipice of rebuilding. We are ready to go. So the whole, like, yeah, that's a haul. I mean, that is a lot of players and picks and everything like that just to get for a guy. So there must be credit, because obviously I haven't watched a ton of Desmond Bane as much as I would of Darius Garland. So there's obviously a great deal of respect that the NBA has for this guy to be able to give up that much for a player like that. But for the Cavs, if we're talking about picks, all right, yeah, you need picks again. You do need picks. I mean, your first-round picks are depleted until like 2031 or something like that. Seriously, like, that's the year I think we're talking about there. But when it comes to, like, Darius, I still haven't – I think I see what a asking price could be possibly for a guy like him. But I think that we're in different spots. Like, I'm in a position where I want to strike where the iron's hot. I think it's easy for other teams to give up picks, to give up ideas, with the exception of bringing in players like that you can work with now. How do I bring in players that I'm going to trust to work with now by giving up Darius Garland or even Jared Allen, for that matter?
Here, to me, is the bigger question and bigger takeaway. The minute the season ended, there was a lot of discussion, like the clip we just played. Well, the Cavs don't have to do anything. The East is going to be wide open next year. Boston's going to take a step back or maybe be out of the picture completely because of the Tatum injury and moves that they could potentially make, losing, Porzingis, losing Jaylen Brown if they want to, losing Drew Holiday. Like, they're going to be a completely different team. So the Cavs don't have to do anything. But I said, the chessboard, it might not look the same when there is this frenzy in the lead up to the draft and free agency. Well, here we go. Case in point. Like, already I see people making the point, Orlando has just taken a huge step forward, and now they could be the team that the Cavs could be looking at. We already knew that we play these wars with Orlando, and already Orlando has made a big swing. And I know they didn't get like this, MVP candidate or even a guy that's been in an all-star game, but it kind of resembles the type of trade the Indiana Pacers made, a year ago when they got Pascal Siakam. No one had the Pacers ahead of the Cavs. Now the Pacers are ahead of the Cavs, at least come playoff time. So Orlando, I wonder, has Orlando become a better basketball team come playoff time than the Cavs?
So the Cavs are kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place here. I don't know how many people have watched the finals here over these last couple of nights. I think that people are this last couple of weeks, I should say. I think some people have I don't think that anybody's flip-flopped. I think that we've gotten more engraved in what our takes are about this Cavs team and what we want to do with them. And then a move like last night happens where Desmond Bane goes to the Magic in a huge trade. 4 first-round picks that are unprotected, a first-round pick swap. You're giving up 2 players for crying out loud. There's a lot there. And you just mentioned, by the way, are they a better, or is Orlando? Desmond Bane going from the Grizzlies to Orlando.
Yeah,
Orlando passing us now as a playoff team?
Did they pass us? Because obviously the one thing they have been missing is shooting, right? They couldn't score because they didn't have that shooting. And now Bane comes in as one of the elite sharpshooters in the league on high volume. He's incredible. Like, that guy has unlimited range. Last year showed some ball handling chops, running the pick and roll, does a lot of the little things really, really well, and a big try hard defensively who you just can't move that guy.
That I hem and I haw. Because I think Orlando is a team that, again, if they were healthy, I think they would have been a more serious franchise this last year. More not franchise, but a more serious team to take into consideration for the postseason this year. They had those injuries that killed their second half of their season this last year, and then obviously played into the playoffs as well. So I put Orlando in a different mix. Them adding Desmond Bane, a guy that not a lot of people here talk about, it's hard for me to say that they're better. Not that I can't fully disagree with you, because I wouldn't know as much in how they help out the Orlando Magic, how he helps them out. But I look at the Cavs and I think, the moves that are possibly there to make. Like, I read the articles about Isaac Okoro over the weekend, Dean Wade over the weekend, and about how that they could possibly try to move on from them. I think fans have been trying to move on from Isaac Okoro for the last couple of years. What can you find that's going to be better that you could move Isaac Okoro from that's going to be better? Dean Wade the same way, where Dean Wade, he's a good shooter, but he's made of glass. Like, I think that's more of what you're talking about in realism, Tone, of where they can improve on. It's very, 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 very hard to find equal value for Darius Garland, and it's very hard to move on from the guy because of the reasons that I give you all the time about what Darius Garland brings to this franchise. It's very difficult.
Well, and, we're focused on Darius, but obviously Jared Allen is the one that a lot of people think the Cavs are going to trade if they're going to make any kind of decisive move here to kind of change up the core. I just don't know. I don't know what the return is, especially considering that if Evan Mobley misses any games whatsoever for injuries, he's been actually pretty durable through the early first 4 seasons in the NBA. If he had to miss any extended period of time, and then you didn't have Jared Allen, like, all of a sudden, what is your basketball team? How do you even make it through a period like that of extended time?
Yeah. I think for the postseason, again, what do I do? And I don't mean to have 2 different conversations here. And I don't keep to being harping on the same thing that I always do. I don't know yet. Do you think that it's a requirement to break up one of the guys from the quote unquote core 4?
No, I wouldn't use requirement, because the one thing that I think the Cavs are banking on that I do have some hope for is that Evan Mobley takes another huge step forward. And if that happens, kind of become a different team. Now, over time, if that also does happen, like, you start to think about all the pieces around him and what that needs to look like. Because right now he's like a low usage on a contender for, somebody of his value. Like, he just doesn't touch the ball very often. So if he starts needing the ball a lot more. What does that mean for Darius, who's on a max deal? What does that mean for Donovan Mitchell, who's going to be, approaching 30 and losing maybe a little athleticism every year? Like, now you have to start to think about
Don't you make
what
those
the roster is
sacrifices
around
though
it.
if you're those
Sure,
players?
sure. But you do start to think about what this team, looks like with that as the case.
Because I don't want to be stuck. But I've kind of gotten in my head, and I think this is what probably frustrates you. You haven't said it to me just yet, and I think this is what probably frustrates a lot of people, is that if I can't make a move with Darius or Jarrett, what move am I going to be willing to make? Like, of all the moves that are brought up there, like, I don't want to move on from any of them. Is there something there that's going to hit me over the head that shows me that this is going to be a better team without those guys and with somebody else? So far, no. And what game 5 of the NBA Finals is tonight? Like, I think in earnest, even though there was a trade last night, I think in earnest, some of these moves are going to have to be made. Maybe after the finals is when one of these teams are able to budge, or maybe there's moves to be made now. And we got to get going now.
Everyone always fights back anytime I dangle Garland in a trade, and they say too risky. And then
that's me.
My counterpoint is, okay, there is a cost of doing nothing, and it happened last year. You got passed up by the Pacers because they went and made a Siakam move, and I didn't see them as being better than us. So I'm not gonna sit here. It'd be revisionist history if I told you that, I'm worried about the Siakam trade. I wasn't saying that at the time, but that's how the chessboard changes and the look of it. Okay, did Orlando just pass us? Are we going to be sitting here next year and let's say we lost to Orlando in the second round of the playoff? Let's say we have a better record than them, but we get, we lose to them again in the series because we don't match up well against them or something like that. Now, you can start to definitively say it was riskier keeping the same team, keeping the core alive. And that was the bigger mistake.
That's interesting because I think of it this way. You say, what's the cost of doing nothing? I think that's a great thing to say. What was the cost of doing nothing this last year? What's the cost of doing something? Because the cost of doing something, how it can backfire on us, is monumental.
Yeah,
to
if
the
you,
cost
went out,
of doing
if you
nothing.
went out and made a trade for somebody, and as it turns out, because it's kind of what Orlando did last year, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, they went and got him, and he's on this contract. He was terrible.
Yeah,
he was dreadful. Right, there was a cost there. They had a bunch of injuries, and they were unable to get out of the first round.
So my issue would be if you go out and you make one of those moves, like, you're going to have to sell that. Because it's probably going to be for a name that I don't know as well or trust as much as what Darius Garland is, or even Jarrett Allen for that matter. I'm more open to moving on from Jarrett than I am with Darius Garland.
Both of them are fan favorites.
I'm going to be upset, and you're going to have to sell me on that. I might have to let you talk down to me because you're going to have to sell me some of these names that I think have become bigger, not household names, but have become bigger talking points. Guys like we've mentioned who are in the NBA Finals right now, those ancillary pieces that help out. There's going to be guys from teams that aren't finals teams, and if they make a move and it's Darius Garland's gone for guys that I would say that 90% of the audience, 80% of the audience at best don't know what they bring to the table, that's going to be a very unpopular move with me. And I think that's going to be a very unpopular move with the fan base. And so I'm not going to scream at you, but you're going to have to sell me on that.